Let's now bring in Jeanne Meserve, CTV News international security expert. Jeanne, it's good to have you on the program. Thank you so much for your time.
Certainly.
Let me begin by asking you about your basic assessment of the situation on the ground. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking there's so much uncertainty here that no one can realistically predict what's going to happen in the next 24 hours, much less in the months ahead. Israel has not formally announced what it is going to do in terms of reaction to these attacks. Its response is clearly complicated by the fact that there are civilians and military individuals being held hostage in the Gaza Strip. They have to try and find those people and extricate those people. If they go in with harsh military action, they run the risk, of course, of killing some of their own citizens, which they certainly would want to avoid. The other big thing that I think we have to be watching is what happens with Hezbollah. Is there going to be another front that opens on the northern border of Israel? What's going to happen in the West Bank? Are we going to see an increase in the violence and upheaval there? And the third thing, I'm really curious to see what happens vis-a-vis Iran. Iran, of course, has been a supporter long-term of both Hamas and Hezbollah. At this point, as far as I have seen reported, there's no firm intelligence that Iran supplied the weaponry or the planning or any other kind of support behind these attacks. But if that is established, is Israel going to move against Iran, or is it possible that Iran will enter the conflict in support of the Palestinians? All of that totally unclear at this point in time.
Jeanne, of course, all of this is also something that is worrying several security experts all around the globe, and that's where we are seeing how heads of state are talking at the moment. Several phones have been ringing in the region, with the United States also actively involved in those phone calls. But while we discuss all this, of course, all of this is in the realm of speculation. But let me ask you about the possibility here. I mean, the fact that you're saying, you mentioned Iran, you mentioned Hezbollah, yes, there is potential. But if that were to happen, if this were to spread in the region, what is the catastrophic impact of this, not just in the region, but we're going to see something all across the globe?
I have certainly heard some people speculating along those lines. It's hard for me to get my head around that possibility. I think that is why the United States has been on the phone with Egypt, for example. I'm sure they've been in touch with other allies. They certainly have been in touch with the Saudis to try and keep the lid on this as much as they possibly can. But what's happening on the other side? What are the Russians doing? Do the Russians, who are, of course, allies of the Iranians, do they see this as a distraction, a way to distract the United States and others from what's happening in Ukraine? It's very hard to grasp what could happen here. I think that the United Nations is going to meet tomorrow. They're going to be trying to put a lid on this. The U.S. is trying to put a lid on this. We'll see if those efforts are successful.
You know, looking at the manner in which all of this happened early this morning, there are, of course, very big questions on both ends, whether it is Israel or even Hamas. Let me ask you this, especially with Israel's defense system being considered as like an iron dome, and countries around the world, you know, take help from Israel when it comes to situations like these. And then on the other hand, the question being, what happened to their intelligence? Secondly, what does this say about Hamas's capabilities?
Well, in terms of Israeli intelligence, you've been hearing Israelis say that this is the worst intelligence failure, at least since the Yom Kippur War and possibly since the foundation of Israel in 1948. As you mentioned, a much vaunted intelligence service regarded as one of the very, very best in the world. There is going to be a lot of recrimination. There's going to be a lot of investigation to figure out what happened here. And has Israel been so distracted by its own internal tensions and disagreements that it took its eye off the ball? It's hard to fathom. This is their backyard. They have human intelligence in Gaza. They have signals intelligence in Gaza. How did they miss this? No one knows the answer yet. Also questions about U.S. intelligence. Clearly, we keep an eye on the region as well. As far as I have heard from all reporting, the U.S. didn't see this coming either. So there will be questions in the U.S. intelligence community as well.
All right, we'll have to leave it at that for a moment, but always great to speak with you. Jeanne Meserve, CTV News international security expert. Thank you for your time.